to Atlanta where the players play, and we ride on them things like every day. Big beats hit streets, see gangsters roaming, and parties don't stop till 8 in the morning. Welcome to Atlanta where the players. And we're back here on AM 1460 WXBR, the talk of Metro South. You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva here with you on this Wednesday morning, and about to be joining us via the telephone is the host of The Natural Truth, which airs here in WXBR for a few more days at least, from 12 to 3, Michael Graham. And Michael, that intro music is not a reference to the former station you were on, transitioning from a talk to a hip-hop format. It's a reference to the destination where you will be in the near future, as you are leaving the confines of WXBR and the New England Talk Network, and you will be on a FM station in Atlanta. Why don't you explain, folks, why The Natural Truth is ending, at least here in WXBR, at the end of this week, and where you're going?
First of all, thanks for the Atlanta tunage. I appreciate that. That was very, very nice of you. I was expecting banjos and hillbilly music. I thought for sure you guys would greet me with a line from Deliverance, boy, you got a pretty mouth, which I happen to know is one of Mike's favorite movie quotes of all time. And he often uses it in men's rooms in the South Boston area. But anyway,
he knows me so well.
Minnesota
airports.
Exactly. But no, I have had a wonderful time here in New England. I came here from Washington, D.C. at the end of 2005 and had a lot of fun and some would argue some success there at the old hip-hop station, and then they decided to change formats, and so I launched my own network, and astonishingly, it did not collapse into a fireball of failure. It's been going great, so great that a large radio company noticed and gave me a call. And when they say they make you an offer you can't refuse, well, that's a reason why they call it an offer you can't refuse. And so it's the right thing to do. I'll be back on FM radio and be working with Cumulus Radio. And as I told my listeners here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, when I announced it last week, it is the worst good news of my life. Because while I appreciate the opportunity and I'm very excited about what I may be able to do, I love living in New England. I have fantastic listeners. People are absolutely terrific, and I don't know what to say.
When you went from the old TKK, because they were transitioning to a hip-hop format, to forming your own network, a bit of a risk, as you mentioned, you didn't collapse, because radio really is a hard industry, especially circa 2014, with all of the different mediums people have to entertain them while they're driving.
No, it's true, but that was the good news for me. One of the things that was a constant source of tension at the old hip-hop station was I was always trying to use new media to pull people in. Because I'd worked on campaigns back in the day, I learned the hard way that you have to be finding people where they are, not where you want them to be. And there was you're not going to even believe me when I tell you this, but I was meeting with our Psycho program director, and she was screaming at me and the great and powerful Tom, my producer at the time, because we were posting show content on Facebook. She was outraged. What's wrong with you? This is terrible. She forbade us from posting on Facebook. I mean, what do you do when you're talking to people like that? Like, do you want us to go back to smoke signals and fire? You want Og to beat the stories out on a wooden log outside the radio station? And but because I had some affinity for new media, and as I always do at every radio gig, completely ignored management, do what I want anyway. I had a decent Facebook, web, Twitter, etc. presence. So when I launched the New England Talk Network, I was able to let people know to find me in Brockton, the South Shore area on WXBR. I was able to keep the conversation going. As you know, I not only broadcast online for people who aren't handy for an AM radio signal, but I also post the podcast every day. And I am as astonished as anyone to tell you that we will hit 1 million podcast downloads by the end of this month.
And me and Mike thought we were impressive, hitting 300,000. Damn it, Mike! You had to beat us.
Well, I'm sorry, but those numbers, all of these numbers show that people want the content, and all you have to do is give them content that's worth their time in a way that's easy for them to get it. And so thanks to great stations like you and my other affiliates, and thanks to the Internet, and thanks most of all to just amazing, loyal listeners who've just been so generous to me since I got to Boston, we were able to make it a success, and my bills got paid. I didn't have to, flip burgers or go take some crappy job in a crappy market, where I didn't want to be. And so it's been absolutely wonderful. I have a couple of regrets. One or two of them involve me not being alone with some Fox 25 anchor women, but I'm not comfortable talking about those on the radio.
That's an off-the-air conversation.
Is that I'm having to leave during the Justina Pelletier case. And for people who don't know, Justina is the mitochondrial patient who had been treated for 2 years by Tufts Medical. She was 14 years old a year ago, February, when she was rushed to Boston Children's to handle an emergency issue that popped up because of her mitochondrial disease. And the doctors at Boston Children's Hospital seized her, had DCF essentially take her into custody, kidnap her on behalf of the hospital, and they've now put her in this experimental program for somatoform, a program that earns Boston Children's Hospital huge amounts of money for research. And the family's been fighting to try to get her back to her regular doctors for 14 months now. Governor Patrick refuses to take any action. And no one on other than a handful of Republicans, no one on Beacon Hill will stand up for this girl and her family from Connecticut. And it's a horrifying case. And Lou and Linda Pelletier, and of course Justina, the poor, sick, dying girl who's gone from ice skating before Boston Children's seized her to now she's wheelchair bound. She's in a terrible, terrible spot. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the media in New England have completely ignored the story. And I'm not going to let go of that. I'm going to use every interweb, everything I can to keep fighting until Justina's free.
That's been a case that you have been on top of more than anyone in New England, as you just mentioned. Largely, it's been ignored, and the only time I usually hear about it is either from you on your radio show or in your column in the Herald, or it's us describing that you're on top of it and promoting the fact that you'll be on from 12 to 3 in the afternoon. Outside of the interwebs, as you just mentioned, will you have any other media presence here in the Boston area, for example, your Boston Herald column?
I'm going to do occasional Herald column pieces. I've been writing a column for somebody for money since I was 16 years old. It's just a very comfortable medium for me. I can usually only sustain an idea for about 500 words, and then I run out of gas, get distracted, and want to go look at porn. So it's a good format for me. But one of the things that when I came to Boston, I was a columnist for some papers down south. I ended that relationship because I knew that if I was going to do a good job and have a compelling conversation that could compete with all the other great conversations out there, and you know what it's like, guys. I mean, it's tough. There's so many smart, funny people out in the world, including just your listeners sitting in a bar, in Southie. You got to give them better content. I'm going to focus like a laser beam on the Southeast and on Atlanta and Georgia. So there'll be occasional stuff in Boston Herald. I will be, the show will be on the Internet because everything's on the Internet. MichaelGraham.com isn't going anywhere. But I just want to point something out back to the Justina Pelletier case. Representative Lombardo circulated a letter simply asking the legislature to look into what the heck is going on with this girl. Senator Hedlund from your area did the same thing. Not saying, we need to do anything specific or punish anyone. Just, could we please look at this? I mean, something weird happened here. A girl suddenly went from happy in Connecticut to trapped in a psych ward in Framingham, only able to see her parents 1 hour a week. And the Democrats on Beacon Hill have yet to find time to even consider looking at it. But you do know what they did yesterday, right, guys?
What did they do yesterday? Tell us, Mike.
They voted on this making the Fluffernutter the official state sandwich of Massachusetts. And I'm sure that it must comfort the heart of the Pelletier family to know that while Beacon Hill can't find the time to do anything to rescue their dying daughter, at least they declared the sandwich she had for lunch yesterday the official state sandwich. That makes them feel a lot better. I'm so glad
Mike,
that here in Massachusetts, our politicians have their priorities straight. Aren't you?
She can enjoy that with a nice cranberry juice, which is the official state drink, Michael.
Exactly. And as long as she has her Fluffernutters and cranberry juice, who cares if she's dying? I mean, come on. There's always some kid dying out there or something. We've got a state sandwich to vote on.
Who needs figure skating when you've got Fluffernutter sandwiches and cranberry, Michael? Come on.
Exactly, right. Did you guys see the story? No, this is totally on the other end of the spectrum. The alderwoman from Melrose who was outraged when DSW did an ad, Mom's the Bomb, buy her shoes for Mother's Day. And she was outraged on behalf of the Boston Marathon bombing victims. at the moms, the bomb reference, and she actually wrote in her letter to DSW, why would you use metaphors that promote violence against women? Did you know when you were calling the hot chicks or walking by the studio, did you know when you called Trimita the bomb, that you were in fact suggesting that someone ignite her and make her explode? Did you know that?
I did not know that, and I feel very upset about that because Mita is the bomb.
She is the bomb, absolutely, and I would love to make her. Well, okay, I don't want to get too far.
Yeah, we don't want to get too weird.
But you got to be kidding me. This is one of the things I'm going to miss about Massachusetts. There is a flavor of stupid that is unique to Massachusetts. This truly is like the South African diamond mines of dumb. You don't even have to dig. You just look on the ground, and there's a big 10-carat stupid right there on the ground. I am going to miss that. You
are going to get two distinctly different types of stupid in Georgia and in Massachusetts. Georgia, a little more southern, a little more rural. Massachusetts, a little too overly PC.
In Massachusetts, it's some moron politician making an idiot out of himself trying to ban your blackened redfish at your restaurant because it's offensive either to black people or Liz Warren. He can't figure out which. Down south, where I grew up, I grew up in rural South Carolina, the flavor stupid have there more involves the phrase, hey, shoot this off of my head.
Every now and then you do hear one of those stories that, well, I was aiming for the top of his head, and I guess I missed.
Those are my people.
We're chatting with Michael Graham here on WXBR. Michael Graham, let's get back to that new media discussion we had a few minutes ago. You mentioned that you got berated by a former program director of yours over at what was formerly a talk station, now a hip-hop station, in the Boston market for posting content from your radio show on Facebook, of all places. And you mentioned, and I agree with you, that you have to put your content in places where people are as opposed to where you want them to be. In her defense, and I guess not really in her defense because I don't agree with her position, a lot of major media entities agreed with that position at one time and have since come around. Look at NBC. Remember they were suing YouTube and stuff of that nature?
Yes.
People watch Jimmy Fallon more on YouTube now than they do on NBC.
You're absolutely right, and this is one of the things that's been killing media, is that there was a day when the cutting-edge people were headed to radio and TV. You think about Jerry Williams and what he did. You think even about Rush Limbaugh, and I know it's hard now because he's such a kind of staid, stodgy guy. But when he first, I remember, I was a young kid just starting out doing stand-up when I discovered this Rush Limbaugh guy. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Oh, my gosh, you were taking politics and making fun of it and having bits about it and being snarky and saying politically incorrect things. Oh, my God, are you allowed to do this? And, of course, that was, 20-something years ago. But there was a day when we were in the industries that were pushing the envelope. TV networks were looking for ways to do 3D on your old, parents' tube to television. Those days are long gone, and it is now the cut and consolidate industry where they just look at how little can we spend, how can we consolidate into one big massive behemoth to bring down the operating costs, and then as far as content, they'll just feed us whatever they want, and we're expected to eat it. And, of course, we won't eat it. As you pointed out, we'll go elsewhere. I listen to you guys. I don't live anywhere near you. I live out in Metro West. But in the mornings, I want to know what's going on. I pick up my phone that I'm talking about right now and hit my tune in, and I tune in WXBR. And I listen to you guys everywhere. And the fact is, that means you have to compete with everyone else who's on TuneIn, who I could listen to everywhere too. And we should be out embracing that competition and that innovation and leading the way because we do content. And that's what people want. That's all they care about. They don't care. They don't care if it's on a phone, radio, FM, AM, satellite. They don't care if it's out of their vibrating spoons. They just want the content.
Content is king, my friend. That is Michael Graham, host of The Natural Truth here on WXBR, which airs 12 to 3 afternoons, at least for a few more days before you venture off to Atlanta. Michael, we want to thank you for coming on our radio program many times throughout the duration of the last year and being a part of our show. And if we could ever return the favor and call into Atlanta, we would love to, Michael. And please stay in touch.
I will definitely. Seriously, when something's happening up in New England and I need someone to explain it to the people in Atlanta who'll be going, you got to be kidding me, I'll give you a call. Also, I want to invite you and all the listeners. I know it's kind of a schlep, but tomorrow night, Thursday night from 6 to 8, I'll be hanging out at Ken's Steakhouse in Framingham. They were one of the very first sponsors I ever had when I came to Boston. The first events I ever did were at Ken's. Our first campaign school was at Ken's. And so if anyone's out and about, you can find the Mass Pike and head out that way. I'm just gonna be there having a drink, and they're gonna have a spread of some apps and stuff for everybody, and just come by, grab yourself a drink at the bar, sit down, and we'll just chat about what's going on.
That's Ken's Steakhouse tomorrow night. I've been to Ken's Steakhouse actually, and I'm a fan.
Come on out! We'll be there. It's gonna be a fun time, and some of my previous troublemakers from the hip hop station are expected to stop by, and you never know who'll be there. Well, plus we'll be gathering audio for the big final blowout show on Friday, which I will tell you is going to be amazing. I've been listening to some of the audio we've already put together. Friday's show is going to be, holy crap, amazing.
We'll be looking forward to the final show of The Natural Truth here in WXBR Friday from 12 to 3. Speaking of the old hip-hop station, didn't Baltazar come up to us last week at some event, Mike? What was your impressions of Baltazar?
Yeah, I didn't have much impression, period. How about that?
It was very weird.
Yeah, weird guy.
That's all there was to that. We won't let Michael Graham opine on that. Michael, thank you.
Wasn't that a character from the Bible?
I don't know where he got his name from.
Isn't that a guy didn't King Nebuchadnezzar get him or something? I'm telling you, this is a Bible. It's very strange to me. Many tekel you farson, as they say on the street, I guess. I don't know.
It's a biblical character and one of the Flintstones characters on that show every morning.
Maybe that's it.
All right, Michael Graham, 12 to 3 here on WXBR.
Tomorrow night, and you'll hear me on the air on Friday.
Certainly, Michael. It's Michael Graham joining us here on AM 1460 WXBR, the talk of Metro South. We're going to do a local news update. When we return, we'll wrap the program. Still to come, 60 Seconds with the Democratic Cowboy. Celebrity birthday. Stick with us, folks.